Hey, it's me, Shaylin Matthews with Oak Road Farm in Pyrenees, and
Jessica Tritz, Central Wisconsin Bernedoodles.
always with the merch, this girl.
I was going to say, if you don't know me, I'm always in swag.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
Sorry,
Super
not
cute.
sorry.
Nope, you don't be sorry. You worked hard for that swag.
And it's really comfortable, FYI.
We like to call them swag whores. Just kidding. Wait, wasn't that what your dog...
No. Slogan slut.
Oh, there you go. That's what her vet said. Not us, because we're good Christian girls.
Like,
but
well,
yeah,
rock
I
it.
guess.
When you got it, you got it. Good morning.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about coloring. And
I'm super excited.
Yeah, Jess is the professional in coloring. I don't know how to do it. I just ask her for advice. But I love coloring because I don't get it a lot in my breed.
Yeah, Great Pyrenees typically are white with badger markings and then white.
Yep.
So
white on white on white, like our
but
farmhouses.
You have some
I
fun
do.
Stuff
so
coming.
I do, but yeah. So I'm actually so Great Pyrenees can throw black. Sorry, there's a dog drinking behind us. I should have moved that bowl before we started. She does this like every episode, but
It's almost like the water hasn't moved, and the
like
dog
like we're not doing this on the same day and changing in between episodes because we're not busy.
No.
So anyways, yeah, she's still pregnant, 3 weeks later, even though she was due.
Jeez, we thought we'd be so sneaky and change our clothes.
Yeah,
And
never.
glasses.
Yeah. And earrings, but anyways.
And shirts. Isn't it cute?
You can buy anything on the internet.
You blend in with the background.
I do.
Here she is.
I am wallpaper. Hear me roar.
She's here.
Yes.
She's gone. Where is Shaylin? Okay, focus.
Yeah, Jess is like, should we be our normal selves? I was like, well, I'm actually not normal. And she's like, no, that's what I mean. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't understand her question at first.
I don't think we have normal selves.
No.
Our true versions.
Yes, like just ourselves. Us, yes. You're
us.
getting it, man. Sorry. But anyways, yeah, so Great Pyrenees can throw black. But when AKC regulated them, that was not one of the breed traits they wanted. So
It's kind of like Merle
Yes.
in poodles. If you have a Merle poodle, you can't register that color.
So crazy.
Apparently,
I have my
dogs,
feelings about AKC.
They fell from the sky.
Yes. So so I am bringing back black and white. Great Pyrenees. I'm really excited about it. I have a lot of families that are super excited about it. I kind of call them like the unicorn of the Great Pyrenees, which is crazy.
So beautiful.
Because my first litter of Pyrenees ever, I had 2 black and white puppies in there, and it freaked me out because I was like, where did this come from? And I was terrified. I thought I did something wrong. And I looked it up, and back then you could find just very little information on the interwebs, deep dark space where they try to bury it down so nobody knows that
It was the neighbor dog.
Yeah, right. There was like a little blip that yes, black comes through every once in a while, and I wish I would have kept those dogs. They're beautiful, but now I'm just I'm out buying stock from other places, getting them genetically tested, making sure they're 100% Great Pyrenees, and so hopefully next year this time I'll have some puppies that are black and white, which I'm so super excited about. So that's about as colorful as I get.
I love it.
But you...
No, but now with your doodles
Yeah.
and the help of your good friend Jess,
Yes.
we start to play the game of colors,
Yes.
right? So now you've got some doodles in
Right.
your program that the more variety that you have, if you go F1B, the
Right.
more that you add poodles into your program, the different color varieties you can have, right? Because every poodle brings a different
does.
color. And what you learned was even Great Pyrenees sometimes have differences in these color traits that factor into getting the black and whites. And that's what it all stems in. It's more of a rare situation in Great Pyrenees, but not true in poodles. Bernese are the same. All Bernese mountain dogs are the same genetically. When you look at colors, I say all, but there's very few that have some differences. But historically and typically speaking, it's no different than Great Pyrenees where they're all the same. So to get different colors, you have to play the game of the poodles that you pair them with and what you're trying to produce, which is, for me, half the fun.
She
you
loves
hate
this
it.
stuff. I hate it. She's like, KY, BB. I'm like,
speak English, sister.
is this the Russian alphabet? What are we dealing with here? Like, I have no idea. But she knows. So I just send my genetics to her, and she's like, okay, you can't do this, or you can do this. Like, I recently had a Great Pyrenees come into heat that I thought about breeding to my black and white stud, and she's like, it's just not going to pair. So it was good to know. So, because obviously they're not papered, so I can't, even if it doesn't work, I can't, they're not, AKC won't recognize black and white Great Pyrenees. Right. Even though I have them genetically tested, they're 100% Great Pyrenees. It's still not going to have papers. So I can't advertise them for sale as AKC Great, Pyrenees, which is what I typically breed in here, other than what the pure doodles, and then venture out to the black and white. So that's what people expect from me as AKC.
Yeah, and AKC just proves pedigree and
lineage. Feel like you can look back real far and see who's the dad of what. And
if you have a color that's not, registerable, it's not that the dog isn't purebred. Right. It's just that it's not recognized.
I just do the genetic testing for one because I like to know what there is, but also it's nice to have that 100% Great Pyrenees to show people, because there is people who are like, there's no such thing as a black and white Great Pyrenees. You might be listening to this and thinking there's no such thing as black and white Great Pyrenees, and I thought the same thing too. But if you really deep dive and dig into this, there was. Even a lot of the historical pictures I find are black and white Great Pyrenees in the pictures. Not black and white pictures, but black and white Great Pyrenees in them,
And they were all evolved breeds. Evolution has created different breeds. Right. And so at some point there were Great Pyrenees that had black and white in them. At some point there were poodles that had merle in them. And so this idea of purebred, that's where we talked in one of our past podcasts about, the purebred backlash and things that you might get into. And that's where some of that stems from, is purity. But if we're being honest, all dogs
they're all mixed.
An evolution of breeds. And so it is what it is. And, for me, it's half the fun.
Right. I'm super excited about adding this, because as much as I love looking at white puppies all the time, I'm a mover and a shaker, and I like to try new things, and I like to innovate. And I'm like, there was one time where I was like, am all I ever going to see is white dogs for the rest of my life? I love them, but then I added the pure doodles, and I was like,
it's so fun.
Yes, color. And every it's like a Pez dispenser, but when they're giving birth, I'm like, ooh. And you have
so fun,
vibrant color.
It's so
it's
fun.
Amazing what you have. So
how
did you get into the coloring?
Shaking and making. It's just fun. I love. We talked about this. I'm a huge science nerd. I love learning about DNA, and when I start going down the rabbit holes of different things, I just love to learn and absorb and just do different stuff. And if you don't own a doodle, or if you don't know a lot about doodles, I tell people all the time, their color is always changing. It's like human hair, right? Our hair is always changing as it's always growing, versus a purebred, for whatever reason, unfurnished dogs, purebreds like Bernese, probably Great Pyrenees, but they're white, so you don't really see a lot of changes. Their coat is more stable. They just lose it and regrow it in terms of, seasonally they change their coat. So for a doodle whose hair is always growing and then getting groomed, you're going to see changes in that coat as you trim their hair. And so it's something that I have fun playing around with, but also understanding that it's going to change, and so that's kind of part of the fun too, is finding different colors that might change less, or start off different and can evolve over time, and just having fun with it, but also understanding that it's one piece of the puzzle.
So if you're a buyer and you're looking at a colorful puppy, last episode we talked about testing and all that. But of course, like I said, we always get someone who comes in as like, that's the prettiest puppy with the prettiest color. I want that one. Generally, they'll change their mind. If you didn't catch the last episode, they'll change it based off of the temperament testing. But if you don't have that temperament testing and you're solely buying off a color, be aware that it can change, and we have no control over that. So we can control what we pair to make the initial color. But even this last time, I bred a new female to a new poodle, a new Great Pyrenees to a new poodle, and I got the most beautifulest chocolate brown. I don't know. It was just such a I've never seen it. And I'm really curious to see how that plays out. Because my pure doodles tend to retain most of their color if they have any. So it's been fun to watch them just kind of even if they have the black, they kind of retain that still. And so it's fun.
They're so beautiful.
But what would you say your favorite coloring is? Do you have a favorite?
Ooh. Oh my gosh. I'm totally a squirrel when it comes to everything, and I love it all. You
have some really beautiful puppies, especially now. You have some beautiful puppies.
I'm such a sucker for brown. Liver nose is another term where they're brown based. So the traditional tricolors that are brown are gorgeous. We have a litter right now from Ivy and Rusty, and there's a couple brown phantom girls in this litter. And I told myself I didn't need any more dogs, but Oops, I did it again.
Lies.
So, I mean, I love brown. I've always been drawn to brown. I don't know why. I just love it. But I love everything. I love Merle. I love traditional. I love, oh my gosh, this summer we had a litter with a lot of party, and there was a little girl in it that was just black and white spotted, and everybody was so drawn to her. One of my families called her Pebbles, and so her name is Abby, but we're going to call her Pebbles because I think it's so fitting from a breeding standpoint. Cute. So she's coming back for training in a little bit, so you'll get to see a lot of her. But she's got what's called ticking underneath. Super fun. Cool. So there's just so many different colors that I have fun with. And again, it gets back to temperament is always first and foremost. For sure. Color is like icing on the cake, right? Yeah. If you understand it's going to change and you can embrace the transformation, it's just fun to play around with color. And, you know, as long as you have a dog that fits your family in terms of like allergy friendliness. So, you know, coat texture factors in, but color is just a fun part of that. And so I love playing around with it.
Yeah, you're really good at it.
Oh, it's so fun.
I just remember your program, just like when you first started doing the doodles, and then once you started messing around with the colors, I feel like it just took off.
Yeah, sables.
Like it was just
like willows, sables.
I mean, your puppies people just are drawn to them, and you just. I mean, it's
they're
fun.
So good. They make my job easy, and I just love playing around with colors. Yeah. And now we have all these different studs and parent dogs. Like our females are all amazing, our boys, and now we get to like play the game of colors. And the more. So the way that our program is shifting at this point for me is more multi-generational. Sure. And the idea behind multi-generational breeding is to play around with furnishings. So a whole topic of conversation for a podcast would be talking about allergy friendliness. And part of allergy friendliness is how furnished the dog is. And so you can get fully furnished Bernedoodles in a multi-generational way, but you also get such color variety. So the more multi-generational you go, the more color fun you can have, the more potential for low to non-shedding allergy friendliness in your dogs, and you can play around with sizes and things. And so the shift in my program moving forward will be a lot more diverse in terms of color and multi-generational, which is really, really fun.
That's cool.
I'm super excited.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I've always just liked black and white dogs.
You have.
So this is like a dream for me. I know what I would like to breed towards is a most fully black Great Pyrenees with white socks, because I think that'd be cute. But like my first dog growing up was a black and white like Cocker Spaniel. And then my favorite dog was the one I mentioned in a different podcast, was my $25 Craigslist find, Samson.
Sammy.
Who was, like
little
I said,
baby.
an obese Dalmatian.
No, he was tiny.
Oh,
Sammy
Jess used to
tiny.
Jess used to tell him to go on Jenny Craig.
He's so tiny. He's this little 150-pound boy.
He had a bubble butt. I mean, he was a big boy, but So I just love the black and white because it's just sentimental to me. So I'm just super excited to incorporate it. But
you know what's funny to me, and I don't know in Puradoodles if you see this, but like in Bernedoodles, there are a lot of breeders that have price tiers based on colors. And I understand it in terms of like creating a brown tricolor Bernedoodle is really hard. And so if I was marketing towards breeders or marketing towards people who are putting their emphasis in the wrong places, that's where that pricing comes in. And I understand it because it is harder to produce, but I don't want my families to lose sight of what's most important. And I feel like when you put different prices based on traditional tricolor, based on phantom, based on sable, I think that's taking the emphasis off of where it belongs, and that's why I will never do that. Merle is a little bit of a different situation in our program. I do charge a little bit different if they're Merle, but that's because you can only have 50% of any given litter, so you can't make as much of it, and you can have half of the litter being Merle, so there's still options to choose based on temperament. So that's a little bit of a different situation, and that's why. But when it comes to like charging different prices for different colors, I don't like that, and I think people pigeonhole themselves into a puppy that maybe isn't right for them just based on color. But I love just playing around with it and having different options for families and seeing them choose the dog that's right for them. And you know, for most breeders, black and whites or black dogs are hard to sell, or they're unmarketable. And I think it's because people put the wrong emphasis on color. And we've had a number of litters where there's been black in the litter itself, whether it was, black or black and white or whatever it might be. And they usually go first. And it's funny because
you have some cute black and white puppies, though.
But it's their temperament.
I mean,
the
so
families
cute.
love them for the dog and not just something that can be changing over time. And yes, color is fun, and it's something that we can play around with and enjoy and embrace. But
it doesn't make for a good dog at the end of the day if it doesn't make for a good dog at the end of the day. If it's a psychotic little puppy, which I don't think you run into that too much with your breeding stock. You have some really good stock.
But there might be a pup that's temperament aligns better, and to choose based on that is always the best way to go about it. And so it's fun to play that game.
Yeah.
But
I think my families are excited about the black and white because I think when you look at peers, you're like, well, they're beautiful, big white dogs. We love them. But introducing the whole black and white scenario, I mean, I just had so many families that already have puppies from me that want a puppy because it was never an option. Like, it was never something that was even on their radar. So this is like, we already love this, but this is going to be really cool.
Absolutely.
And the puppies that I have gone all over the country to get to create this stock when they're ready, I mean, they're the freaking cutest puppies. I mean, I think, because I love black and white puppies. Poppy, and then I have Benny. And then we have, well, her name's Brandy now. So
cute.
Yeah, so they're so cute. And like, I don't know, there's gonna be so much fun. And Benny's like, he's like white with the black polka dots. Poppy is like peppered, we call it, like a pepper, dark face, dark feet, but like pepper everywhere else. And Hannah's a good in between. She just has some of the black, staying black spot, but not as much as Benny. So they all look completely different, and they're all so beautiful, and the families are so excited. And so I think it was just fun because they're like, we never knew this was an option. And we love the Pyrenees. And I have a couple families on the list that have a Pure Doodle from me, a Pyrenees from me, and now they want a black and white. So they want like the full,
I was just
the full collection. So it'll be fun to just introduce that to them. And I have so many people excited about it because it was just never an option.
Well, and I think for me personally, I just get bored of doing the same old.
Yep,
and I love repeat litters, but I also love switching things up and seeing what they can produce. And I think that's what keeps me excited. It's what keeps me going. It fuels me to try some different things and see what I like, see what I want to do more of. And I kind of gauge it based on interest, right? Like if I have families that want more of something. And so if you're listening to this and you like something, let us know, and we'll make sure that we make it happen. But I don't know. It's just, it's part of the fun for me.
Color's really fun. It adds a whole new twist on things, I feel like. Again, with just having always the white dogs, when I switched over to Pure Doodles, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Which then really made me go back to that black and white because it was always there, like in the back of my head. Like I had 2 puppies that were black and white. And, like I said, the one article I could find on it back in 2016, because I thought I did something wrong, and I was like, okay, and just keep coming back to it. It keeps popping up here and there, and I'm like, okay, maybe, like I survived the Pure Doodle backlash.
I was going to say, you probably weren't afraid
I had a
to
thicker
try
skin,
it
right? I had a thicker skin, and so, but a lot of the breeders that I found were selling based off of the coloring, so that was a little harder too, because I mean, when you're just starting and you still have to make sure this dog is 100% Great Pyrenees and do all the testing, and they're like, well, this one is 3,000, this one's 4,000, this one's 5,000. It is kind of hard to want to hand over that money when you're like, I don't know if there's even a market for this, and I'm going to pay $5,000 for a dog, which I didn't. I just kept looking, but people do price off of coloring.
Yeah,
so
breeders do all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, I
don't really get it. So I mean, if you're listening to this and you're like, this is why we do it, feel free to like comment, but like in the comments or whatever, like why you do it. I feel like I just have too many irons in the fire, and I can't keep up with all that. So I would forget. I would just be like a mess all the time. And if they're like, oh, I want this dog, I'd be like, okay, well, this one's 3,000, this one's 4,000, this one's 5.
I love working with my pet families. I know a lot of breeders. I've purchased a lot of dogs from other breeders. And I've seen a lot of discussions in forums and things like that. And I mean, stud dogs that check every single box from a breeding program standpoint. I mean, $15,000 for a stud dog, that's perfect, is not unheard of. $10,000 is pretty run of the mill at this point, and I've definitely spent a lot of money purchasing dogs that check every box for me, and now I'm at the point where I can just make them myself, which is really cool. But I just want to stick within pet families too. Like I would much rather sell the perfect dog to a pet family and have them love and cherish this dog, even though it's a genetic rock star, just because I enjoyed making it.
Right.
Like for me,
right. Yeah.
That's the fun.
And knowing you're making something like quality.
Yeah, and I know the value in it. They may never know like how much of a genetic rock star this dog is, but I can say I created this litter of puppies and I know that they are absolutely perfect and they're going to the most loving homes, and I love that I can do that, and I think that those families are so receptive to just enjoying that dog like I want them to enjoy it, you know, and I find that more rewarding at this point.
Yeah. People always say, like, it must be so hard to let the puppies go. I'm sure if you're a breeder and you're listening to this, you hear that a lot. But to me, because I have the best families, it's a really bittersweet thing. Like, it's hard to let them go, but I have the best families. And
let's be honest, 8 weeks in puppies is like 18 years in children. You love
the
your
poop
babies.
Is getting bigger, they're eating more food.
They're destroying everything. You put in, I think that every puppy's mission on this earth is to try and kill themselves on any given day.
Seriously.
So trying to keep them safe.
What do we say? They're born
healthy.
to die? Like they're born to die.
Oh my gosh.
Like they're like, hey, can I just do anything to...
Every
stories I have heard.
That's
a whole podcast.
We could do a whole podcast
we could. We
on
will.
ways that puppies
try to die.
Things. Oh my gosh, funny things that we've dealt with.
Oh my gosh.
As breeders, that honestly would be, I could fill up an entire podcast.
It can really scare you though. Like some of these things I hear, I'm like, I wish I didn't know that, because now I'm like scared that's going to happen, you know?
Oh yeah. And I mean, just this week we had a puppy. I mean, I'll give you one glimpse of what it's like. What it's like being a breeder. We had a new litter of puppies, and the mama was wearing her collar, just regular collar, and the puppy got between her and the collar was trying to hang himself.
Yeah.
Never thought I would have that. We usually don't keep collars on.
Didn't you have a puppy eat one of the collars one time, and now you keep the collars off?
We had on homecoming morning, because it's always Saturday morning that they're supposed to
Whenever
leave.
the vets are closed around here, because we live very far from emergency vets here. So.
That's actually one of my favorite stories to tell. So if you don't mind, I'll tell it really quick. So we had these breakaway collars. They had, the plastic clasp and a metal hook that you would hook a leash onto.
Sure.
You don't ever use that as puppies, but they had these collars on. That's for their identification. And if you don't understand why puppies need to have identification, early on, you measure them and you weigh them every day to make sure that they're growing. And then as they get older, just to track for deworming and weekly weights and identification.
They go to the vet,
and
microchips
everything.
and all that stuff.
They have to have identification.
We name them, but they have a color too.
Yeah.
So.
And that's how you track them. And so homecoming morning, went out in the nursery, getting all of my puppies ready to go. Families are arriving in like an hour, and I'm looking around and I see a puppy that doesn't have a collar. And so I called my team who was there the night before, because they had given baths, and I'm like, hey, just making sure that this puppy had his collar on. And yeah, he had his collar on. And then I start looking around in the pads, and I'm finding pieces of like the plastic collar clasp.
Of course. They had a heyday with it.
They did.
All of them were probably filled with little pieces of collar.
So they had broken the collar off. And keep in mind, like when this collar was stretched out, it probably stretched 8 or 10 inches. So straight, it was a long collar expanded. It was only, maybe a half inch thick or whatever it was. But it was a big. And these were full-size puppies. So they were maybe 10, 12 pounds, probably 12 pounds.
Yeah.
And so everybody comes for homecoming, and I tell them all, I say, here's your perfect puppy, but one of these perfect sweethearts ate a collar last night. They all had to get x-rays, and I learned very quickly how expensive x-rays cost in the state of Wisconsin. But there were a couple families that chose not to x-ray their puppy, and one of them was the lucky winner. And so 3 weeks later, he pooped it out. Whole. It was still whole.
What?
A perfect collar. Yeah, I don't know how it lived inside his belly for 3 weeks, but
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And and so what we
they're like monkeys on like crack cocaine sometimes.
It's crazy.
Like, put everything in your mouth, spin around, bite each other. Yeah, it's funny.
So we miss them, getting back to your original point, but also I think because our families stay in touch,
yeah.
and you know, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of poop, like you mentioned.
And it's like, it's time for them to go because they do need to start bonding with a family and start getting their training. Like at 8 weeks, they're ready.
They're ready.
We're already doing stuff here just casually with them where I'm like bringing them their food and they have to sit. Like they're ready to be learning, and there's just little sponges. And so it is.
Transition to individual life. Like they've lived pack life. Now they're ready for that transition into individual puppyhood. Sure. And much like an 18-year-old, like they're ready to go out. You're ready for them, and the families stay in touch. So I love that progression after
we've
the
totally
fact.
gotten off a topic of coloring.
Okay.
Of course.
I can't imagine why. How would that happen, Shaylin?
Is there any good resources where these guys could look? Like, where did you start learning about coloring? Was it like in a book or online, or do you remember the interwebs?
The dark web. I mean, that's a rabbit hole.
Specifically, or any that?
No, I mean, I just started Googling, you know, colors of Bernedoodles, and I have to be honest. Like, if you, and this is what I tell families, if you go on the internet and you find a picture of Pyrenees or a Pyredoodle or a Golden Doodle or a Bernedoodle or whatever it is you're looking at, you are going to get the most freshly groomed, perfectly maintained, straight out of the groomer doodle, probable puppy that you've ever seen, and it's going to be gorgeous, right? And the reality of the situation is that is not what they look like on any given day. That is not what they look like at 3-4 years old. And so when you start looking online, you have to be realistic about what you're finding, and you know, what the outcome of that puppy as it matures is actually going to be. But just start looking at things. And you know what I always tell people is, as you meet people's dogs, ask them like, hey, what breed is that? Do you know, is it an F1B? Is it an F1? Is it a multi-generational? Like what mix is, you know, is it, or what color? And just start asking those questions and paying closer attention. I think that helps people narrow down like what they like, what they don't like, when you look at curl versus straight coats and all of the different things. I don't know. I think as I started having more litters too, and keeping dogs back, now within our program, we basically make and create everything that we want moving forward. And obviously we're adding new dogs so that we can keep that genetic diversity. But, you know, you can play the game of what colors do you have in these dogs, and what would you make if you paired them together? And that's half the fun for me, is looking at the KY, KY, KB, AT, EE, like all the things that you think
She's
is
like,
a
does it have a little E or a big E? I'm like, guess what? I don't know.
Does it have an E at all?
Doesn't even have an E at all. But I think too, speaking of coats, is if you're a doodle person who's going to get into doodles, or if you want to buy a doodle as a buyer, you need to have a groomer in place before you probably even get that puppy.
Oh my
honestly,
gosh, for
because
real.
the groomers are in high demand, and you're going to need this dog groomed unless you're going to watch YouTube videos and learn how to do it yourself, which a lot of people like to, but it can be overwhelming. So there is grooming involved,
and there's a learning curve.
Let's be honest about it.
There's
grooming. Yes,
I tell people all the time, like there is a legitimate learning curve to, I mean, I learned it when we added Willow. I learned she could not run through the burrs and stick ties like my Bernese Mountain dogs can. And Great Pyrenees probably can too. Like they have a very straight coat that it just kind of falls right out of, not poodles, not doodles.
Yeah. And Pyrenees groom themselves. For me, they'll come in filthy, just like full of
pull
stuff.
it out.
They'll lay there and pick everything out, shake off, and there's a pile of dirt and a bunch of burrs. I'm like, woohoo! Unless it's like somewhere they can't get it, but
usually on my living room floor. It's great.
Yeah.
But you know, that's a learning curve, and I tell my families all the time. So again, like those first 8 weeks of preparation are super important, because we're talking about that. We're telling them to get on the list of a groomer, start asking your friends who they use, who they like, start looking at pictures.
Some tools, here's some shampoos, here's some things we use.
The right brushes, absolutely. You need the right tools for the job, and if you don't, you can get caught with your pants down like I did, and sitting outside with the scissors cutting out all the burrs for hours.
You have your pants on for that? Just kidding.
No. But
Travis is a lucky man.
Gosh, I digress. But so it is, and I love helping families learn about it, because I think, you know, when you look at it from an allergy standpoint, you know, when you decided to go with Pyredoodles, it was because you had people that wanted Great Pyrenees but couldn't have the stature, they couldn't have the shedding, they couldn't have certain things that you have to have if you have a purebred. And so helping families choose the dog that works well for them from an allergy standpoint. If you can have the color that you love, great. But if not, let's at least look at coat texture. Do Do you need a curly coated dog? Do you need a dog that's going to be low to non-shedding? Can you not manage a curly coat and would be better off with something a little bit looser that's more of a wavy coat? And what are the differences? And I love helping families decide that, because yes, color is fun and color is a lot of joy to play around with, but at the end of the day, it's only one piece of that puzzle, and just trying to put that together for families.
Is there any websites that people who are maybe are breeding and want to get into the coloring that you would recommend?
Finding a breeder that you can talk to is really important, but also doing your research first. There are a lot of great groups on Facebook that you can go into that are talk color genetics, but a lot of times people will just go into like a Bernedoodle forum and say, what do I pair with my dog to make tricolor? And that's very obvious that they don't want to do any research. They just want someone to tell them what to pair. And there's always a couple people that will chime in and tell them what they need. But for me personally, I want people to like put in some legwork, start reading about it. You can go on a lot of these DNA places and start learning about it. But I just started kind of absorbing myself, or, surrounding myself with a lot of things and really absorbing all the information that I was finding, and just started, doing a lot of my own research and then asking informed questions, because at least I had a base knowledge of what my dogs were, getting my own dogs tested so I knew what I had to work with and then figure out from there. And I think if you put in a little bit of legwork, the breeders that you find to bounce ideas off of will be a lot more receptive of it too, because you're not just taking all of their knowledge and just kind of taking advantage of what they've invested in that. And so I think that shows good faith in what you're doing too. And so just trying to get a base of information first, and then surrounding yourself with people that are doing the same kinds of stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's cool. I think that will conclude our color episode for today.
Super fun.
Yeah, it is. You should check out Jess's page when you get a chance and just scroll through the cute, colorful puppies.
I always tell people you can watch puppy videos for free. So that's like the best part of social media, seriously. Is just seeing all the different colors.
They're so stinking cute. And as they grow too, from the time they're born to they grow, like I feel like that is even not changing so much in the color, but just in the floofiness, and how the floofiness even changes their look. You know, it's
absolutely.
It's so cute.
Versus wavy coated.
Right. So All right, cool. Well, that's it for today.
Yeah.
Right?
Short and sweet. I like it.
Yeah. We have stuff to do. Take care, guys.
Bye.